Let's just see. And we are recording. So, Warren, how the hell are you, man? Welcome.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Cannot complain.
Yeah, well, we all can complain, just no one's going to listen to us. So that's the problem. So, I suppose just a bit of background here. So, Warren was actually the inspiration behind this. He doesn't even know it yet, but him and a group of his lads, his mates, they started uploading their very own podcast called the Discus Lariat Collective, and that's basically all things wrestling. And as Warren was just saying to me there, he's got a pretty full on schedule with the whole WrestleMania weekend, all that good stuff in terms of the Hall of Fame and stuff. So, if you want to give a bit of background about that, Warren, or
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we just started like a wrestling podcast, just chatting about as you said, all things wrestling, from WWE, AEW, and then like all the classic stuff as well. So that's how we started off, just doing kind of classic stuff, and then got into like weekly reviews and stuff like that. So yeah, WrestleMania week now, so a show pretty much every day over the next 9 days or so. So
yeah,
flat out there, but yeah, if you're interested in wrestling, you can check it out. Yeah,
that's good. It's better to have too much to do than not enough, I suppose.
exactly. Yeah.
What was I going to say as well? So yeah, I was looking. So I was chatting to Warren then about this, and I kind of ran the idea past him, and he was happy to do it. So I went back on just on kind of a couple of the lads' episodes of the podcast. So they've got a lot of stuff on there. Like, so it's a good one if you're interested in wrestling to check it out. I'd say it's definitely a good start anyway. Um, so the background of this one then, as we said in the intro for these podcasts, so it's basically like we're swapping any kind of media that we're interested in or is our favorite at the time. So for this one, I was chatting to Warren last week, and we decided to do a music specialty. So he recommended me then Blues Funeral by Mr. Mark Lanigan, and I recommended him an album by a band called Half Moon Run, Dark Eyes. So I suppose, Warren, just a bit of an intro about the album that you recommended to me. What was how did you discover it, and what do you like about it, and that jazz?
Yeah, so yeah, Mark Landing or whatever. I remember seeing a quote before I even knew who he was. I seen a quote by Josh Homme of the Queens of Stone Age, and he said that Mark Lanigan's voice is what they say as rough as a 3-day-old beard, but as smooth and pliable as moccasin leather. So I was like, I need to check this guy out. So yeah, I just looked up like Mark Lanigan. I seen he was in the Screaming Trees, and I'm big into the kind of the 90s grunge thing, like Mad for Pearl Jam and stuff like that. So I was like, oh yeah, cool, give them a listen. And I was like, wow, his voice is crazy. I'd love to
Yeah,
listen to like a solo stuff. And it's always very the names of the albums, the names of the song titles and stuff, they're very dark and almost like depressive kind of sounds. I was like, all right, this sounds pretty cool. So give
yeah,
give a few albums a listen. And like Whiskey from the Holy Ghost, that's a good one as well. But then Blues Funeral just kind of stood out because I don't know, it's the one that I listened to the most anyway, but it was just every song just lays perfectly into another. It's
mm,
not like you can well, I couldn't anyway at the time. I couldn't skip it, and I was just like, oh, this is just perfect. It just
yeah,
sounds so good. And at the time as well, I don't know, like I wasn't necessarily like upset with anything or depressed or nothing, but I was just sitting there and I was like, oh, this just feels like he's singing to me or something like that.
he wrote
So,
this
yeah,
specifically for me.
yeah, that's what it felt like. So I was like, this is amazing. And then I was only after listening to that album, so that came out in like 2012 or something. And but I was listening to it like about 3 years ago. That's all. And then I seen he was playing over here and in the Olympia or something. So I was like, yeah, I'll go and see him. And I went to see him, and he played like 6 songs off that album. I was like, this is insane, and it sounded
Savage.
exactly like it. So it's like
Yeah,
that's crazy. But yeah, it's just an album that just kind of stood out, just how easy it was to listen to,
yeah,
and
100%.
yeah, and how dark it is as well. It's pretty good as well.
Yeah, it's a weird one because when you recommended it, like obviously I obviously know the name and I've heard of the Screaming Trees and everything. And
Mm.
then I remembered as well that I seen some live stuff from the Queens of Stone Age, and they had Mark Lanigan doing the tracks because he obviously recorded on Songs for the Deaf, a couple of songs on that. And it's funny you said that about Josh Homme because when I was listening to it, I was just thinking of like words, what his voice is. It's so unique, and I was saying to myself, it's like honey, and then it's like whiskey. It's like whiskey honey. It's like I don't know if that's a thing, like, or if anybody has invented whiskey honey, but like that's a thing. That should be a thing. Like that's
Yeah,
exactly what I kind of got from his voice. And it's funny that you said that because I had never heard that from Josh Homme. But what you said about the album though as well is like I listened to it, and the first two tracks like that clicked on. Like I was immediately hooked on it then. I was like, and then as it was going through, like it's dark, but then the kind of the vibe changes a bit. So it's like it almost gets into disco at some stage, but it's like this really dark disco. It's cool.
yeah,
Like
yeah. It really is.
yeah.
It's funny because he actually has I think it's on. It could be on one of his later albums, one of his last 2 or 3 albums. He has a song called, or it could be on that album maybe. Oh, with the sad disco as well.
That's
There's
the
a
one. Yeah,
song called that. Yeah, and
yeah.
I remember. Yeah, it is very dancey almost.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I was
Upbeat.
listening to the album and I was like, yeah, I know what to expect. And then like the songs are like, yeah, there's not too much thrown me. And then that song that you mentioned, oh, the sad disco came on. I was like, what the fuck is this? So it's Bleeding Dead, you know. Yeah, so no, it was a great show. And so it's, personally for something that I've never heard before, it was and it's definitely something that I would, you know, listen to more of. So I suppose we'll keep that for the deep dive though.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah,
so I suppose in the next one, then the one I recommended you. So Dark Eyes by Half Moon Run is the name of the band. And I came across these. It was actually a chance happening with the YouTube algorithm. So I
uh,
remember I was working and I was just popping on some songs and whatever way they recommended me tuning. So they start that came on, that first song came on, I think is Full Circle, I think is the name of the first song.
yeah.
And as soon as I heard it, I was like, hold on, I have to stop and I have to figure who this band is, and then I have to listen to more of them.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I got. And then again, like I listened to like a couple of their albums, and I actually got to see them. It was actually Paddy's Day in 2017. They played in the Academy,
Savage.
and I seen them there. And since then, I've kind of been a big fan. Like, so that's the what did you think overall? I suppose for that album, like what was your first thoughts?
First thoughts when I seen the name of it, when you recommended the name, the first thing that stuck out was like, oh, I don't know this band, I've never heard of them. So that's a good thing.
Mm,
Because obviously you could recommend something and just off the top of your head, like you say, like, oh yeah, listen to Metallica's first or second album, and it'd be something you've listened to 1,000,001 times. So you're like, oh yeah, well, no, but I'll re-listen to it.
yeah,
And it kind of brings back their memories. But because I've never heard of it, I was like, this is intriguing already. And then
yeah,
the name as well as a class name for a band, Half Moon Run. I was like,
yeah.
yes, I was like, what the hell? The thing that stuck out though when I first listened to the album, yeah, that first song, Full Circle, I was like, this is a cool melody to this. And
Mm,
then I was like, I wonder will the whole album be like that? Because again, with something that you've never listened to before, when you have that first kind of taste of it, you're like, is it going to be this way through the whole thing?
yeah, yeah,
Or is it going to change, as you said, with the Mark Lanegan one? Oh, nothing really threw you for a while, and then all of a sudden it did.
yeah,
And I feel like this as well was kind of like that as well. Like by the time I got to, I want to say maybe 5 or 6 songs in, it felt like the definition of like like an LP when you flip it over like side B or whatever. That's what it
yeah.
felt like to me.
It changed,
And
like, yeah,
yeah, it really did. But it changes for the good. Like it wasn't like jarring, like, do you know what I mean? But yeah, like the vocals as well. Like there's like group vocals in a lot of the songs. It just
yeah,
sounds great. Like it just works perfectly.
yeah.
But yeah, it kept me hooked anyway. Savage album.
Yeah, that's the thing. Actually, when it's funny you mention about the name of the band because I always like that name as well, Half Moon Run. And then when I was chatting to you, then last week we were messaging back and forth, and then I was like, oh, that's Mark Lanigan now, the Screaming Trees, and I was like, that has to be a side note thing. Like that is one of the best band names ever. So I think on this podcast now we've got two of the the history of two of the best band names. So the Screaming Trees and Half Moon Run. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, but then on that album again, like so it's like that. It's got some kind of typical songs, and then like you can hear a lot of influences of like like say Beatles melodies or stuff like that. But then all of a sudden it's kind of you're in a bit of a folky vibe, and then all
Yeah.
these group. It's a really good album. So I'm glad you liked it anyway. It's a good
Yeah,
start.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I suppose then, so just a bit of a deep dive on them. Then, so for that album that you listen to, so your first question I have here, which is your overall like feeling on the first listen, because I know the reason that I think this kind of idea is good, like swapping media stuff, because you kind of actively listen to stuff. So if you're like just listening to music and it's on the background and you kind of say, oh, that's cool. But I don't think a lot of people, or at least I don't anymore, is like actually put on something to listen to it and to think about it. Like, so is there any thoughts that you had straight
Yeah.
off the bat when you were listening to it that just kind of stuck out to you? Like,
Yeah, you're right when it comes to like you don't really tune into stuff anymore unless it's
yeah,
almost recommended. So yeah, it was like I know when I first heard the first song, Full Circle,
mm,
what came to my head was like maybe this is gonna be an album about like loss or drugs or something like that because it felt heavy almost, do you know what
mm,
I mean? Like some of the lyrics in it as well kind of stood out.
yeah,
About I think he said about a needle in the arm bringing you closer to God, something like that
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of stuck out to me. I was like, oh maybe. Um but yeah, it felt like almost he was like the singer was apologizing a lot of the time.
Right,
Um,
very good.
there's another song as well on it. I think it was No More Losing the War. It could have been.
Oh
It's
yeah,
the Tour de Four track anyway, one of them. And I remember he just screams out this girl's name, Karen. at one stage, and I was like, this fella has wronged somebody or something's
Yeah,
going on
yeah,
here. But yeah, it felt almost like apologetic as well. Do you know what I mean? That like
yeah.
the whole vibe of the album almost felt apologetic, but like he had something to sing about. He needed to get it off his chest almost, and that's
That's
what I
really cool.
think. Yeah, like it hooked me. Do you know what I mean? Because again, everyone kind of gets in them kind of, I suppose that wave of, oh well, look, I feel like an arsehole lately, or I did this, or I did this wrong, or I'm sad, and this. You always kind of get these emotions.
Mm,
So I think when I was listening to that, that's what stood out. I was like, right, yeah, we've all been there. Do you know what I mean? So, and I felt like that was resonated a bit with me
mm.
anyway. I was like, this is pretty good. That's what hooked me.
Savage. Yeah, like when you said that, like I do get that vibe off the album as well. Like, because especially when like he's there's a line in that first song, Full Circle, and he's like, with the heart of a lion and the wit of a fool, it's no wonder why I don't try build my walls around you. So it's kind of like but like not every song is say like a typical love song, but I just find the lyrics and the way that he writes that, like, because sometimes, you hear these like typical songs about breakups, about people are hurt or whatever, but I just found it was a bit different. And like you said, like he's almost apologizing, but he's like, this is why, he's getting stuff off
Yeah,
his chest, like, yeah, it's
yeah, it
class.
was it was really good. Yeah, and I liked as well the what would you say, the way he like projects the lyrics a bit. Like it's not necessarily the way he's singing, but it feels almost talky sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can hear he's singing, but it's almost like he has it written down. He's reading it off a sheet. He's like, oh, you need to, like, almost like a diary entry. That's what I liked as well.
Oh, very good. I
Pretty
never, I
cool.
never
Yeah.
actually thought of it that way, but now the next time I listen to it, I'll probably be thinking of that. So fair play, fair play for that. Generally, then, was there any highlights on the album that you like, in like songs or like parts, or like what did you think
Yeah.
there?
Some highlights was the first three songs anyway.
Mm,
Full Circle, Call Me in the Afternoon, No More Losing the War. They stuck out immediately. Like
yeah,
Call Me in the Afternoon, I'm more of a bass player anyway. Like that's my kind of go-to thing. But I haven't
savage.
played the bass in about 8 months, I'd say. But
Yeah,
once I heard that Call Me in the Afternoon, there's a bass line in that stuck out, and I was like, right, I think I might have to dust that off and try to learn that. That's just what I like.
yeah,
Um, so them three stuck out. And then I like the kind of almost the vibe of the album where it's like I was saying with the Mark Lanigan one. It feels like you can like you don't need to skip a song.
yeah.
You can just let it play and you can like feel your way through it. And I feel like you can feel like a peak and valley kind of
Mhm.
wave to it. So after them 4 3 songs, then it kind of tames down a bit. I feel
Yeah.
gets a bit kind of, I would just say, I suppose you could say like, yeah, rocky almost
Mm,
with there's some of the guitar playing and stuff, but constantly you always have them the melodies or the like the really kind of, it sounds to me anyway, like arpeggio kind of, you can hear
yeah,
the arpeggios and stuff like that, especially in the first few songs. But then near the end as well, it completely tones down,
yeah,
and that's what I liked. Like the last 3 songs, Nerve, one's got Fire Escape, I think, or that could have been slightly before it, and
yeah. That's the
then
one. Yeah,
yeah, and then the last song, then 21 Gun Salute, kind of brings it back up almost.
yeah.
And yeah, that's what I liked. I kind of liked that ebb and flow to it. It was nice.
That's cool because, like, yeah, like no one can listen to like all up all the time, or no one can listen to all down all the time. No, it's good. You have the balance there, and obviously, that's one of the things as well that I like about it, because there's some songs that you have to listen to kind of intensely to kind of almost get the most out of it. But then there's some songs that are perfect to just be in the background as well, which is what I think you're talking about, that ebb and flow, like, which kind of makes
Yeah,
sense to me as well. Like, and similar, but I suppose we get on to Mark Lanigan, but I had a kind of similar take on that one as well. But that's cool. And then I suppose the next question I had about it was there any lowlights or something that you listened to said, I'm not really partial to that, or
I wouldn't say there was any like low lights. Again, obviously it was like kind of a first few listens.
mm,
S- Maybe as a whole, like I feel like with certain albums anyway, for me, when I listen to an album, if I like it, that's grand. But then I could listen to say their second or their third album, and I
mm,
might be like, oh, it feels very like the first album. It feels like they
mm,
haven't kind of dipped their toe into anything new. But yeah, no, I didn't have any real lowlights.
mm,
The only thing I feel with some of the heavier kind of stuff that they did, it would have been cool to maybe hear that on one or two more songs. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
But apart from that, yeah, no lowlights.
that's class. Yeah, no, it's a good point. Like, and I suppose like, and I suppose one of the follow up questions I had for that then was like, so would you take away from that album and go, I'm gonna actually dig into this discography now, or would that be something you do like after listening to it the first time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like especially like this, I don't think that four song say Full Circle, I don't feel like it's almost, oh, I don't even know how you word it. Like, do you know when Appetite for Destruction
Mm,
by Guns N' Roses,
yeah,
Welcome to the Jungle opens that album, and
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
the perfect opener. That's
yeah,
what I feel Full Circle was to this album. And once I heard that, I was like, oh, you need to listen to more of this, whether it's for the singing, whether it's for the guitar playing, the bass, the percussion, anything. It's just straight away. I was like, this is a band I can get into.
yeah. That's savage, and that's the thing. Like that, that's the song that I heard, and it was on that the YouTube algorithm that prompted me to it, and I was like, holy shit! Like I need to listen to this kind of, I need to take this away. But that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like so, it's a savage album, and I suppose this is kind of hard almost because like if we had kind of context and a couple of snippets of the songs, you could probably like overdub them in here. But as like with the whole copyright thing, I don't know if it's doable, but could
Yeah.
possibly try and sneak in like 2 seconds or something and see what happens. But
Yeah.
I suppose the point of it is anybody listening to this is to take away, like if you're into that vibe, I would just check out the first song because then you will know if you like that album or not. So that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then would you pay for the ticket? Would you fork over the 40 quid to go see these?
I think I actually would, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen any of their live stuff or anything.
Yeah.
I just listened to that album, and then what I did is the second I finished listening to the album, I went straight onto Wikipedia to make sure that's still going. I was just like, have they broken up or anything like that? Or for some reason in my head, I was like, maybe one of them's dead. I don't know why. So I looked it up, and that's still going strong. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
maybe
definitely would.
maybe
Yeah,
Karen killed him. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. She came back.
He got the
She just
revenge.
didn't like that song.
Yeah. Or maybe that was funny you mentioned that lyric because he screams the name Karen. I was like, maybe he's just showing like his disdain for Karens all across the world. Like
Yeah.
the way the internet has gone now, you can't name a child Karen. It's actually cruel to name your child Karen.
Oh, actually is, yeah. You'd be bullied
So maybe
big
he
time.
was foreshadowing that anyway.
Yeah.
So I suppose maybe hopping over then to the next album. So it's Blues Funeral, and again, I suppose reiterating that I'd known of Mark Lanigan before that, and then the Scream Trees, obviously. But I was listening to it, and the first song I popped up, and I remember just thinking like just the total vibe off it, like, and it kind of came through more than throughout the album. But what I thought of it was almost like there was almost like a Wild Westy vibe off it, but it was like a really dark Wild West vibe, and I loved it. Like so that first
Yeah.
song, Gravedigger song, like just this pumping bass line, like, and it's just like hooks you straight away, like, and then when I listened to that, so I was thinking, right, that's class. And then as the album progressed, like we were saying, I just found that like bit by bit there was like these new little things being introduced, like that song, like that Dead Disco or something, I think it's called there. But it was like, holy shit, like this is at the change. It was throwing me for a curveball. Did not expect that.
Yeah, it's true though. I think he does that pretty well as well, Mark Lanigan. Like the musicians he has around him, I don't personally know their names or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think especially around that album, like Blues Funeral, and I think the album after that, the guitar player on them two albums, he's the absolute image of Johnny Cash. It's scary.
Yeah.
Like if you go look him up, you see image of Johnny Cash. But he does like the guitar, but then some songs then the guitar will be by the wayside, like on the little live sets, and then he'll be on like a synth or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty cool. It's like I know Harborview Hospital, I think, on that album.
Oh, that's a
It
savage
has
song.
very, yeah, it's almost like an upbeat kind of thing to it. Like it just stands out to me anyway.
Yeah, he's talking about a hospital and people are dying. He's like, the one happy song of the album is about a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
There's something funny actually.
Yeah, go for it. Hit me.
So that song Harborview Hospital. Now I don't know if it's directly linked, but just along the whole grunge thing as well. Was Andy Wood from Mother Love Bone, who died of like an overdose years ago. He died in Harborview Hospital in Seattle.
Wow.
So I don't know if it's directly linked, but that's the first thing that came to my mind because I was before I listened to that album, I was watching Pearl Jam 20, and they talk about you see that hospital and stuff.
Wow.
And then about 2 days later, I was listening to that album, and I was like, whoa,
that's class.
Is that linked? Yeah, it's crazy.
Because I was actually thinking when I was listening to that, I was like, the amount of like great grunge artists that have like passed away, and like it's almost like if you're a grunge like artist or like singer in a band, you're just like watching the clock of like when's it my turn, because and maybe like that's interesting that you said that because next time I'll be listening to that now I'll be thinking about that. But and I've seen 20, but that's a great documentary, like, but I never noticed that obviously, but that's cool. And maybe he is kind of an ode to all of the deceased that he knew back then during like the early grunge eras and stuff like that.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, a little nod to the fallen brothers kind of thing.
Yeah, spill one out for the homies. Yeah, it's class. And again, like I suppose the highlights for me on this album then was more or less like it's very similar to what you said actually. So the first three songs, so I have the list here in front of me. So it's Gravedigger's song, Bleeding Muddy Water, which is just like that's so just cool. It's heavy and it sounds like the title. So Bleeding Muddy Water, like it's
Yeah.
just everything. It sounds so thick or something. I can't.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can describe it is everything's so thick. And then Grey Goes Black. It kind of takes the tempo up a bit more, and then you're kind of leading into the next like the rest of the album. And I was just we came across that the Sad Disco. That's the one that came on and hit me, and it's just this like four on the floor, like but like really dark and intense music behind it. I was like, that's fucking deadly, like Um, so that was again like I didn't really find any lowlights. Like I suppose the only thing I would say is that like it has got this melancholy mood the whole time, and I suppose I'm a bit like I don't know how to explain it, but like if I'm in the mood for that, I'll stick it on, listen to it all day long and all night. And then
Yeah.
sometimes, I probably am in the mood, so I listen to a couple of songs, flick it off. But fucking great album nonetheless. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes it can feel almost too heavy. It feels like it's dragging you down as well, like almost.
yeah,
But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're in the mood for it, you'll sit there all day. But yeah, maybe listen to a few songs and then I don't know, open the curtains maybe and go for a walk.
call your friend and say hello.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good. No, it's definitely got some gravity, like that. The whole album is just like kind of pulls on it. So no, it's class. And again, like as I said, no lowlights. That was the only thing I thought of. But that's really a personal thing. Like if you're feeling it, you're feeling it. And the first time I listened to it, the first kind of active listen I done, I was like, this, I could listen to this, and I could definitely check out more of his stuff.
yeah,
And then we're going back to what you said then about Josh Homme. It's so funny. Like the two words I was like, he has this such a smooth, almost like baritone voice, but then he has this such grit in it as well. I was like, I've
yeah,
never heard a voice like that ever in my life.
yeah. It's almost like the grittiness reminds me almost of like Tom Waits a bit, like
Yeah,
later Tom Waits.
yeah,
But again, it's as you said, it's kind of I don't know, it's more open or something. It doesn't feel as like Tom Waits when he sings reminds me of someone who's hunched over or something when he's
yeah.
singing. Do you know what I mean? Because he seems very stuck here or something like in his chest. And then Mark Lanigan can kind of project a bit louder or something it feels like. But yeah, it is. It's smooth but grainy at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that goes as well. And he doesn't only have because I know he's kind of got this deeper voice, but if you go back and listen to even some of the stuff in the Queens of the Stone Age albums, like Songs for the Deaf, like what's that as a Song for the Dead? Actually, I think it might be. And he's just got
Yeah.
this gravel, but it's a higher pitch thing. It's like that. His voice can like do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I think he sings on Hanging Tree as well, and
That's
he
right.
kind of
Yeah,
does like a little vocal kind of little melody thing that sounds pretty cool as well. It doesn't. It almost is like how is that the same guy? You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Now
Yeah,
he is a bit longer in the tooth now at this stage, so maybe he's
tone it down.
yeah retired his high vocal chops. We'll see. And then this I suppose the two follow-ups that I had then was so would I go and listen to the back catalog? And it's absolutely I would, like, and I have listened to Screaming Trees, but like that maybe not actively enough, so I'd
Yeah,
definitely go back, start there, and then work the way through the catalog.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like the first, another four Screaming Trees album, that's stellar.
Hmm.
First half of that album, anyway, is just it's pure kind of 90s.
Yeah.
And then yeah, when he started doing his own stuff, the first few albums that he did, they are very like melancholy, very sad, very depressive. Obviously he's after losing a lot of friends around that time as well. So yeah, again, you'd have to be in the mood, I suppose, for the first few albums. But then yeah, once like I know his later stuff, like Phantom Radio and stuff, a lot of upbeat like tunes on that as well. So it's good to listen to because it's almost like he's having a good time now. You know what I mean? He's in a good place. So
He's got it
hopefully he
all
stays
off
there.
his chest. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's savage. And I was actually looking at, I've seen some live stuff he done as well. Like he does look a bit haggard now at this stage, but like he's tipping around there, he's still tipping around.
Yeah. Steady
Yeah.
diet of cigarettes anyway, that's what it is.
Cigarettes and whiskey honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, I suppose the last question then I suppose on both of these albums, like if gigs were ever a thing again in the current uh, COVID times, that was definitely a gig I'd go to. I could envision it being like one of them Thursday night gigs in like in like the Olympia or something. You just rock up and have a couple of points beforehand, and you're just merry. That's the type of way I'd definitely be up for that though.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what it's like.
yeah, so yeah, that's really I suppose the gist of all this now. And cheers like for jumping on, Warren. And if you're interested in doing more in the future, I definitely encourage that if you were
Absolutely.
up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be up for that. That's the thing, like as I said, that album that you recommended, never heard the band, never heard the album, and already like blown away by it. I was like, this is amazing. So
Grand.
yeah, I'm up for that again. Yeah, whether it's an album, film, anything.
Yeah, and
That'd
that's
be
and
well.
this is what this is about. Like this is, I suppose the reason I suppose behind this is because like there's so much like that music, film, TV out there these days that like it'd be hard to just find something that you can actually hold on to. And I suppose if you get a recommendation like something like that, you actively watch or you actively listen, and then you're like, actually, this is why I like it. And it's good, I think, to take stock sometimes of why you like it. So this kind of forces you to do that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially like the current times as well, as you were saying, like COVID's still going on and stuff, so everyone's still kind of locked up a bit. It's good to have that, like I suppose something fresh to kind of do, whether it's keeping your mind active with like listening to an album, sitting there watching a series, a show, anything like that, whatever film.
Yeah,
It is good because, as you said, you'll actively like listen, actively watch, so that's good as well.
100%. So that's the crack. Thanks very much, Warren. So again, for anybody's listening here, the Discus Laria Collective got the YouTube channel, got the Insta, all that stuff. Got it's all things wrestling. So that's a good one to check out. Plenty of content to go and deep dive on there as well.
Cheers for having me, anyway, Jonah.
No hassle, sure. I think you'll be back very soon.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yeah. Good man. Thanks, Mil Warren.
No problem.
Take it easy.